guys, I'm Stacy with Handmade by Stacy J. In our second video for the Learn to Knit series, I'm going to show you how to incorporate your knits and your purls that you learned into a little combination of stitches that will create this. This is the Seersucker stitch dishcloth, and we've done two of them just so that you can see. They have a wonderful textured like diamond pattern, and they feel absolutely lovely. So come and join me and let's get started. To create the Seersucker dishcloth, we're going to need a few items. The first is your knitting needles, and these are a size 6 or a 4 millimeter. You're going to need your scissors. You'll also need some yarn. For dishcloths, I prefer to use 100% cotton. It's in a number 4 or a worsted weight. You'll also need a tapestry needle for weaving in your ends, and then completely optional are stitch markers. You'll need 2 of those. Then one last thing is you'll need to head over to my website and download and print a copy of the pattern. So you have your written pattern, and then included with that is also a chart with a checklist. These are extremely handy, so please head on over to www.HandmadeByStacyJ, get those printed out, and I'll meet you here in just a minute and we'll get started. The very first step to creating this dishcloth is you have to cast on 46 stitches. So I'm going to use the long tail cast on method. I'm going to get 46 on my needles. I'm going to cup my yarn, I'm going to spread it open and then cast on. Now if this is your first time trying this, my first video for the Learn to Knit series will show you a little more in depth on how to cast on. So I'm going to cast on my 46 and I will meet you at the end of the cast on. Now that I've cast on my 46 stitches, it's time to move on to the next step. So we've done the cast on. Now we're going to knit across for 5 rows. So we're going to do 5 rows. And if you go to your checklist, you'll see where it shows you right here. Row 1, knit. Row 2, knit. 3, knit. 4, knit. 5, knit. So I want you to knit those first 5 rows, and then I'll meet you at row 6 where we start our pattern repeats. I've completed my 5 rows of knitting, and now we're going to move on to the pattern. So it says here we're going to K3, so we're going to knit 3, and if you're choosing to use the stitch markers, after you knit 3, that's where you would put your stitch marker. Now your pattern repeat is to K1, P1. So you're going to knit 1, purl 1, and you're going to repeat that until only 3 stitches remain. And that's when you're going to knit 3. That's another spot to put your stitch marker. So I'll get you started on this. We're going to start by knitting 3. Knitting 1, 2, and 3. And if you're using stitch markers, now's the time to put one on. And now we're going to start the pattern repeat where we're going to knit 1, purl 1. So knit 1, purl 1. Knit 1 where the yarn is in the back. We bring it forward and we purl 1. And that's all you're going to do for this row. Knit 1, purl 1 until you have 3 stitches remaining. And I will meet you at the end of this row. I have 5 stitches remaining. I'm doing my final knit and purl. And then because there's 3 stitches left, I'm going to put my stitch marker on. And now we're going to knit 3. 1, 2, 3. And this is what it should look like. Now keeping in mind that in this section here, in between the stitch markers, that's where all your pattern repeats will be. These end 3s, the 3 stitches on the ends, these are going to be your border, and it's going to be a garter stitch border. So let's get started on the next row. Now that we've completed our first row, we're going to move on to the second row. And the second row is exactly the same as row 1. So you're going to knit 3, and then in that pattern repeat between your stitch markers, you're going to knit 1, purl 1. And you're going to knit 1, purl 1 all the way until 3 stitches remain. When you get to those last 3 stitches, you're going to knit 3. So repeat what you just did from that first row, and I will meet you at the end of row 2 so that we can begin row 3. Now that we've completed the second row, this is what your piece should be looking like so far. You've got your garter border there, a little bit of garter showing on the edges, and you've got a little design starting to form right here. So let's move on to the next row. Now if you look at the pattern, I'm going to zoom in again for you. You'll see that for the number 3, we're going to knit 3, then we're going to do a repeat of purl 1, knit 3. We're going to repeat from the star right here until 3 stitches remain. So between your stitch markers, you'll do a purl 1, knit 3, purl 1, knit 3, purl 1, knit 3. And that's all that you will do. And also on this little chart that we have here, it explains it here as well. You have your knit 3, and then your repeat of purl 1, knit 3, purl 1, knit 3. So let's get started on this one. I'll show you how it's done. We're going to start with knitting 3. That's 1, 2, 3. Then we're going to slip our marker. Then we're going to purl 1. Then we're going to knit 3. 1, 2, 3. Now we're going to repeat again. We're going to purl 1, and we're going to knit 3. And that's all you're going to do down this row until there are 3 stitches remaining. With those 3 stitches, you will just knit, and I will meet you at the next row. On this next row, we're going to do a knit 3 to start with. Then we're going to slip our marker. We're going to do a P3, K1. So we're going to purl 3 and knit 1. And that will be our repeat until 3 stitches remain. Also looking on your checklist, you'll see that it also tells you knit 3. The repeat is purl 3, knit 1. After those repeats and 3 stitches remain, you'll just knit them. So I'll get you started on this row as well. We're going to start with knitting 3. 1, 2, 3. Then we're going to slip our marker. Then we're going to move on to purl 3 and knit 1. So 1, 2, 3, knit 1. Then we're going to repeat that again. Purl 3, 1, 2, 3, knit 1. And that's what you're going to do down this row. Purl 3 and knit 1. So continue doing this repeat until you have 3 stitches remaining. Then you will knit those last 3 stitches, and I'll meet you at the next row. For the next 2 rows, we're going to do exactly as we did for rows 1 and 2. So on row 5, you'll see it says knit 3, knit 1, purl 1, and repeat until 3 stitches remain. And also on row 6, you'll see that it says the same thing. So for the next 2 rows, you'll simply knit 3, do a knit 1, purl 1, repeat until only 3 stitches remain, and then you'll knit 3. You'll also see that it's here on your checklist as well. So it's K3, the repeat, K1, P1, continue, and then K3. So I will meet you at the end of this row, so that way we can begin on the next step, which is, let me get this on camera here, which is this row right here. So work 2 rows with a K3 and then knit 1, purl 1. And I'll meet you in just a little bit. Now that I've finished those 2 rows, this is what my piece is looking like, and yours should too. You can start seeing the pattern taking form where you're getting these little ridges, and it just starts coming together really nicely. After you do the repeat of the complete pattern about 2 times, you can really see it coming together. So let's move on to our next step. Now the next step is number 7 on the written pattern, where it says knit 3, and then the repeat is the knit 2, purl 1, knit 1. So it's knit 2, purl 1, knit 1. You're going to repeat that until 3 stitches remain, where you're going to knit 3. So I'll get you started on this one. So we're going to start by knitting 3. 1, 2, 3. We're going to slip that marker. Now the pattern repeat says to knit 2, purl 1, and knit 1. Then you're going to knit 2, purl 1, and knit 1. So you'll continue this repeat until you have 3 stitches remaining, and those last 3 stitches you will knit. And I will meet you at the end of this row. Now we're ready for row 8. And row 8 involves knitting 3, and your repeat will be a purl 1, knit 1, purl 2. And you will repeat that segment over those 4 stitches until only 3 stitches remain, whereas in those last 3 stitches you will knit 3. So let's get you started on this. Okay, we're going to start by knitting 3. 1, 2, 3. Then we're going to slip this marker, and we're going to work a purl 1, a knit 1, and a purl 2. So 1, 2. Now we're going to do the repeat again. So we're going to purl 1, knit 1, purl 2. And we'll do the repeat again. So purl 1, knit 1, purl 2. That's all you're going to do is continue this repeat all the way down to the end, and in those last 3 stitches you will just knit 3. Meet you at the end of this row. I have finished row 8, and now this is what the piece looks like. And you can see how it's starting to really take shape, where you're getting little staggered areas. And after you do this repeat a couple more times, it's going to be pretty amazing. I absolutely love this stitch. So to move you forward on this, I'm going to refer back to this pattern one more time. What you're going to do is, it says right here, you're going to repeat rows 1 through 8 4 more times. So you're going to do 1 through 8 4 more times, and it will also have the same directions on this for you to follow through. Then after those 4 more repeats, you're going to repeat rows 1 through 5 one more time. So work up to this point. I will meet you here, and then we'll work on the final rows. Now I have finished all of the repeats. I repeated rows 1 through 8 4 more times, and rows 1 through 5 once more. And this is what it looks like. Ta-da! Look at all that lovely texture. I love how this feels. So now for the next 5 rows, all we're going to do is just knit across. And on that first round when you're doing it, you can slip your markers because you will no longer need your stitch markers. So referring back to this, just knit across for 5 rows. I'll meet you at the end of that and we'll do a bind off together. I've done my 5 rows of the knit stitch, and now we're ready to bind off. So we're going to bind off knitwise. And just as a refresher, I'm just going to show you how to do this one more time. So we're going to knit these first 2 stitches. Knit and knit. Then you're going to take this first stitch and you're going to slip it over this one. Just like so. And that's your first bind off. Then you're going to knit the next one. Take this stitch right here. And you're going to slip it over. Just like so. You'll knit the next one, slip it over, just like so. And you'll just continue this down the row. I'm on the last couple stitches of my bind off. And we're almost done. This part always gets me very happy and excited. And that's the last one. Now we're going to take our scissors, cut the yarn, leaving a tail long enough to weave in. And then when I end them, I always put the yarn, well, through the loop. That way it secures it just a wee bit more. And now all you need to do is weave in your ends, and you have a new dishcloth with a beautiful texture. So I hope you found this tutorial helpful. If you did, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, give me a thumbs up, or share with your friends. You can also visit my website again at www.HandmadeByStacyJ.